Okay, we're back. What I want to do now is go through a set of elements that you can use when you're analyzing a group's communication, things that data you can collect to help you pinpoint what's going on in the communication of a group, and then maybe what you can facilitate to change in the group, all right? Okay, the first thing is to look at who is talking to whom. And these diagrams are used in a lot of different ways with communication, and I'm going to talk about them again a little later in physical setup. But all they're trying to capture is if you had to look at the style of what's going on in a specific communication situation that you've been asked to analyze to see how it could be improved. So you can see here that you have situations where people are simply talking to one another, almost like a telephone line. You have a situation where there's sort of a bottleneck. That's the second one with the Y. The wheel is the most common, where someone is in charge. That's A, and they are simply directing out to everybody else. You have a situation where everybody's talking to everybody. You can have a situation where you will find that there is communication happening in kind of a flow of a circle. It's not going to be this clean and neat when you're looking at and listening to and watching people talking and communicating. But if you can kind of put the names and how people are seated and diagram who's talking to who, it can really help you figure out where the problems are. One of the things you're doing when you're doing that diagram is making note of who's talking at people, right? Who's talking to people without listening back? Who is talking between? And what I mean by that, who's talking between themselves more than to the full group? Who's not being heard? Which people can you identify as talking, but you get the sense that no one's really listening to them, or they literally aren't talking? Who's giving feedback? Making a note and identifying who responds to someone else's comments or communications. And that can be both positive and negative, give you a piece of information. Who is or is not listening? And that can be everything from literally being on your phone to clearly not listening because you go on to something else, or you mishear what someone is saying. So these 5 things, along with the pattern, are what you want to try and collect as far as who's talking to whom. There are ways you can do this, right? Data collection, you can do this by asking people. But usually you're going to be doing this on the fly, or if you're lucky, like we're doing in class, you can be reviewing a taped video of what's going on to kind of get at the dynamic. But sometimes you're just making notes to yourself as you're looking at the communication dynamic. Once you have that information, what happens is you start classifying styles of communication within a group. Now, I know you guys have done a lot of Myers-Briggs stuff in terms of individuals and how it affects your behaviors and your interactions. I think you can do any number of labels, right? I gave you the network analysis labels of isolates, bridges, social interaction, right? The communication leader. There are communication styles, easy labels of who's aggressive, who's passive, who's active. I think labels are a little scary and a little difficult because once you've given someone a label, they're confined to that behavior. So I tend to not want to necessarily label the person as a whole, but to label communication styles that you see happening so you know where you might be able to affect the change. I have this silly little video here that I thought I might play for you that shows you sort of the dynamics of labeling, but also kind of reminds you when you're looking at people in a group meeting how you might categorize them. It'll take a second for it to click over here.
and we were at this restaurant.
All right, guys, you guys ready to get started?
Hang on a second.
Trip, you ready to get started, buddy?
Okay. Hey, you guys, we're all here. We should start.
All right, thanks for coming, guys. I just wanted to take a few minutes and talk about some ideas for the marketing strategy this year. So if you got one, just throw it out there. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, how long is this meeting supposed to last? The schedule wasn't exactly clear.
Should be out of here in 30.
Is that approximate or
Hey, guys. Sorry I'm a couple minutes late. I got caught in traffic.
7 minutes, actually?
What's that?
Couple is 2.
So what we're doing is we're just coming up with some ideas for our new marketing strategy.
Sure.
So, anyone?
I think we should implement Pinterest.
Ooh, that's a fun idea.
What about a publicity event in the park?
Interesting. But how are you going to plan around the weather? What if it rains?
So we'll party in the rain.
Okay, just want to emphasize there's no bad ideas here. We're just brainstorming. So.
Yeah, I'm just really thinking it'll be a huge waste of money to try to plan around the weather.
Yeah, okay, we get your concerns. Nancy, thank you.
Okay, anyone else have an idea? Ephraim?
I've always wanted to see rain fall down all at once in a big splash instead of small drops over time. I mean, think how it could impact the irrigation system.
Okay. Terry?
Well, I have an idea from my previous job that I had last year. Let me take that back a little bit. I have this wonderful idea, but it doesn't really make sense unless I just take it back a second and bring it forward together. It was like 3 weeks ago that I remember he said something that I couldn't understand.
Hold on a second, Terry. Hold on. Thanks for pointing. Here's what we need to do, okay? Lauren, you got this? We do a video submission contest on YouTube.
Oh, that's
okay?
been done.
It'll be on Facebook, it'll be on Pinterest, it'll be on Twitter.
If we do something with technology, we lose the senior demographic.
So, you guys want to see an example?
Should we be moving on to the next topic? I mean, it's already quarter after.
It's quarter after. That's funny.
Who knows how to put this on the screen? Up there, because you're not going to be able to, I want you to see all the details. We have a cable. Does this cable work?
I think that's power.
I don't know if on the there's an
This one.
HDMI
That
port,
cord's not gonna be long
in
enough.
the back.
Does that
there
remote
could be
go to
like
the
2 or 3,
TV?
like HDMI 1,
Plenty of time,
HDMI
guys.
2,
No rush.
HDMI
This
3,
isn't working.
I got a
and
green
they
marker.
coincide
Call the
with
IT
each
guy.
other with,
Wait,
there's
turn
also,
what off and back
what
on?
do you call it? S-video.
Hello?
Okay, I've got it working.
Hit play.
Okay, now imagine hundreds of those floating around the web. You actually, do you want to watch it one more time?
No, please.
Trip, I think you're onto something with this idea. I really like it. Carol, did you get that down?
Yeah, got it.
Sorry, what is C-test up sub YT pros?
Well, I'm abbreviating to make room for all these great ideas. Contest, uploading it to YouTube, funniest, and you get a prize.
Wait, where are the other ideas?
And time.
Wait, where y'all going? We still have 100% of the things to accomplish.
Okay, I need to say, and I forgot, I'm so sorry, I should have said at the beginning, I find the portrayal of the black man incredibly offensive, and I meant to give you a heads up on that. But I did think that the rest of the characterizations kind of get at very different communication styles and how they can be disruptive in group situations. The other thing is, of course, it says the visual presentations are always bad. Obviously, I don't believe that. I think if you're set up in advance and it has a purpose, right, clearly visual presentations can be important. So with those two caveats, I think that being able for yourself to classify people's communication styles can be helpful down the road. Just remember that the label, too strong a label, can really end up getting in the way of seeing everything that that person is communicating. Oh, sorry about that. What did I do here? We'll go back to the PowerPoint. Okay. So we have the information of who's talking to whom and the style of communication that's going on. We also have the actual communication environment, right? The group environment that's taking place. So you want to look at literally the physical layout in terms of where people are seated and the dynamic that is creating in their communication. Also, we want to look at the meeting flow. What's happening at the beginning, at the middle, and the end of the meeting. What's the role of the meeting coordinator? And in a minute I'll talk about why I call it a meeting coordinator. But what's happening in the way the person leading the meeting is communicating? Because the person leading the meeting is essential to good group communication. And then finally, is there an agenda or is there not an agenda? Is it important that there be an agenda? So you want to look at those 4 group environmental, kind of as I call them, elements, as well as the dynamic between people in their communication. All right, so you gather that information and then you look at what can be changed. These are 4 things that I think can be changed to a certain extent. And again, this is layering over, I know what you're already familiar with facilitation, but in terms of affecting literally the communication itself. So the physical layout, right? One thing that can happen very subtly, right, is setting people up in a seating pattern that will change the dynamic of the communication. If 2 people are talking to each other, right, suggesting seating them apart. If people on one side aren't being heard and people on the other side are, mixing them up because there's some kind of pattern that's been established there. Looking at the actual room that a meeting's being held in and asking if it's the best room for that particular meeting, especially given the style of the table that people might be seated at. Physical layout also can apply to the virtual meeting, right, in terms of talking about the way you expect people to present themselves in Zoom. The sensory interruptions that can happen and how much that can be controlled. Then you have the meeting leadership, right, as I called it, the meeting coordinator. The person that is leading can direct the communication pattern, and they can do that both very directly and very indirectly. I think it's often a good idea to suggest that somebody be the meeting coordinator who's not necessarily the designated manager of the group or the identified head of the group. Because if somebody is in charge of all these people, they have a tendency to play that into the group situation. If you appoint people as meeting coordinator, they have a job to do, which is to direct the meeting and the communication, not to control it. I think it's a really important point, and it's something that you can bring to facilitating change in a group communication pattern. Once you have somebody that is a meeting coordinator, suggesting them to be able to direct the flow if somebody is dominating, if people aren't listening, to being able to do that kind of active feedback, asking for feedback. Joe, what did you think about that idea? Or Ray, it sounds like you're not supporting that idea. That the person who's leading the meeting can really change the dynamic of the communication by providing that kind of feedback as to what's going on. The meeting flow itself, right? Deciding how to set the group pace. So by the way you bring people in and get the meeting started. What you do in the middle of the meeting to bring everybody back to focusing on the meeting. How you end the meeting. Being very cognizant of the amount of time and making sure you're giving people a heads up on the time. Always makes a huge difference on their involvement with it. The involvement that people have as the meeting's going on, and making sure that that involvement is, that people know what's expected in terms of their involvement in the meeting and reminding them of that, so it doesn't get confusing. Do we all want to vote on this? Let's go around and hear one idea from each person, right? Setting that meeting flow up can help the communication tremendously. And then you have the group expectations. A lot of group expectations, especially in organizations, is implied, right? We've met forever, or the department has had this tradition of how they have met, but the people who are there don't necessarily know those expectations. So there are expectations in terms of language, how people are going to refer to each other, in terms of how people are going to call on each other or give feedback, and reminding people of that, right? is not necessarily a negative thing. It's it's an orchestrating. And then the customs that go on in a group, the expectations, the customs of, are we allowing people to arrive early and leave early? Arrive late and leave early. Eating during meetings. I've told you guys I have no trouble with you eating because we meet late. Certainly eating where somebody's noisy and eating a lot of food that is difficult to eat or is difficult to look at as somebody's eating. But somebody who's quietly eating a sandwich very quietly, sometimes it's okay for people to eat in meetings. So what are the kind of customs around what's going to happen in the meeting? Who's taking minutes? Are we going to pass the responsibility of taking minutes? By not setting those group expectations, it allows the communication to fly free-for-all, which can oftentimes be very deadly to both how people feel about the group, but also how things are accomplished. Two other considerations just to think about. One is that giving people the opportunity to share is different than giving them the opportunity to share equally. It's not the case that everybody has to feel like they have to have an equal amount of time, right? But the opportunity to share, and if someone hasn't been sharing, to give them the opportunity to say something, right, is incredibly important. And then the other one is individual bias and insensitivity that we're going to again talk about next week. How do you deal with someone who is offensive in a meeting? How do you give them feedback for that in a way that will move that person forward or move the meeting forward? And when is it appropriate to do that? And how is it appropriate to do that? So when you talk about those microaggressions, for example, that take place, whether they should be called at that moment, how they should be called, or is that a custom or an expectation that will be brought ahead of time that people are aware of before they enter into the meeting? Okay, so I gave you these ideas. Who's talking to whom, looking at those patterns, looking at the style of how they're communicating, and then looking at sort of the environment of the meeting itself. I'm going to be giving you a list of those pieces. I want you to take a look right now at this meeting. It's a meeting that was set up for how to take minutes, but I like the meeting itself for our case study on Wednesday night. I want you to watch it now. I'll put it separately on YouTube so you can watch it again. I'm going to break you up into 2 groups of 4 on Wednesday night, and you will work with this particular meeting in detail to analyze the communication elements of it. But for now, I just want to show you the meeting itself.
Thanks for coming to today's monthly meeting. Let's start with apologies for absence. Oh, and before I forget, Frank Lyons is running a bit late. He texted me this morning. And Gary Cope and Carl Madden emailed. Thanks for coming to today's monthly meeting. Anyone else? Let's start with apologies for absence. Oh, and before I forget, Frank Lyons is running a bit late. He texted me this morning. And Gary Cope and Carl Madden emailed apologies. Anyone else?
Joy Ballon-Weezy can't make it. She's struggling with some personal issues. I think she's got some sort of foot thing that she's got.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Where's Clive?
Oh, I completely forgot, yes. He can't be here. He's had to go to a meeting elsewhere.
Damn it.
Oh, and Janet Bowers is off sick as well.
Oh, that's a surprise. To tell you the truth, I've forgotten what you looked like.
And I'm delighted to announce we have a new team member with us and specialist minute taker. So for the benefit of the new addition to the team, shall we all introduce ourselves and what we get up to? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll start. Hello, I'm Rita, Managing Director, as you know.
Hi, I'm Jason Somerville. I'm the new Project and Program Manager for Marketing. I just transferred over from the US office, and I just want to say how excited I am about this new role, especially with some of our new products coming on board. And I also wanted to say how sorry I am to hear about the loss of our HR manager, Sarah Bryant. I think that's going to be an incredible loss to the team.
Oh, yeah, I'm Lucy Strokes, PA to Rita.
I'm Sue Carpenter with a D, and I'm the sales director.
And I'm Julian Geddes, the new HR manager.
Okay, on to the next item. Are there any matters arising from the previous minutes? No? Fine. Well, next item on the agenda. I'd like Lucy to talk us through her thoughts on this.
Yeah, well, there's been actually a problem with car parking, you know, ever since Orchard and Shipman moved into the new offices at the back. And we knew this was going to happen eventually, but, you know, our staff have got used to the extra spaces. And what's happened, there's been a few arguments. There was a really bad one where one of our lot complained to one of their lot, which is really bad because we're trying to, like, it's just started us with a bad reputation. So what we need to do is let our lot know that the spaces belong to them, actually.
I'm sorry, are you saying there is a problem with car parking, Lucy? I didn't quite catch all of what you said.
Yeah.
And also, a number of the sales team need their car throughout the day, and they want to know what the company proposes to do about this issue.
I'm not sure. We need to send an email letting all the staff know there are only 5 spaces that belong to us.
Well, I think we should think about priority parking as well. It's the only way we're going to stop people rowing on a regular basis.
Sorry, I got held up in a previous meeting.
Okay, it's okay. We're just discussing car parking issues.
Right. I ride a bike.
Yes, I do too.
You ride a bike?
Yes.
Oh, really? And does it have a bell on it?
Actually, yes, it does.
Please, can we get back?
Okay, I mentioned priority parking. Listen, we need to make a decision on this. I witnessed a fight last week between 2 members of staff.
Oh, stop exaggerating. It was just a heated discussion. I was perfectly in my rights to stand up for myself. Some loser came up to me and said that my car has taken up 2 parking spaces. Now that's just ridiculous.
Well, you do drive a tank, and it does take up 2 spaces. I think priority parking is a good idea, Julian.
Well, thank you. I think that anyone that needs their car for work and uses it during work hours should be given priority, like the sales team.
What happens if one of them is off sick?
Sue, can we just decide on the priority spaces first?
Well, I can think of about 4 people on the sales team that use their cars regularly. I'll get back to you after the meeting, but I'm pretty sure it's 4.
And well, that should leave enough space for management, provided that is that Jason gives up the tractor.
How about 2 car parking spaces for visitors as well? Prospective clients might need those spaces.
Completely forgot about that. Actually, yes. Let's make it 3.
3.
Oh, please, would you both put your phones away? It's very distracting. Okay. Right, 3 spaces. As it's a difficult area to park with a 2-hour restriction, and client meetings are always running over, that would leave us with 2 spaces left to be allocated.
Have I got a space?
Rita, client meetings shouldn't be running over 2 hours. I mean, mine are 40 minutes max.
Well, I have different types of meeting from you.
Yes, but if meetings overrun, I mean, clients just switch off and get bored.
Really?
Yeah, can we please get back to the agenda item? I do have another meeting to go to after
The car
this.
park is not an issue for me, as I travel by bicycle, as does Frank. Look, I suggest Sue and Jason are allocated the 2 spaces.
But I don't mean to be petty, but Jason really does take up 2 spaces.
Excuse me, I would like
Listen,
to
if
say...
he parks by the garages in the corner where he normally parks, he's normally okay there. So let's have him have that parking space. Listen, forgive me, this is just getting a
Jason,
bit silly.
you need to park by the garages.
And I'll coordinate letting the next priority member know if anyone is off sick.
Okay, great. So can we all agree that we send a list to all staff advising them about the priority parking? Is that okay?
Great.
If
And
no
I-
one's listening, I'll send it.
Also think that if anybody parks inconsiderately, that they should lose their car parking privilege.
Oh. What does everyone think about that? Lucy? What do you think?
Yeah, he's right.
Okay. That settles that.
Settles what? Loss of privilege or parking by the garage?
Both.
All right, so I'll put a sign up with my name on it, my parking space. Yeah.
Oh, can you put a sign up on all the spaces, Jason?
Oh, okay. Why don't I get a list and then I'll circulate it so there's no confusion.
Fine, Jason, you do it.
Sorry, can I just say...
Okay. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, staff morale. Sue, can you explain the background to this? Sue has identified a growing problem with staff morale. Can you all refer to the issued report?
I wish Clive was here. I mean, actually, he really needs to be here.
No, he doesn't. I'm here. Why does he need to be here? Please, carry on.
Well, there is a concern in some departments that there is low staff morale. This is indicated by the recent low sales figures and also increased sickness absence in some of the departments.
I'm sorry, I don't seem to have a report. Thank you.
Right, well there seems to be a significant problem with staff morale in the sales team and also sickness absence and also company-wide, particularly on Mondays and Fridays.
There is definitely low morale in the company in certain departments. New changes that have been introduced, like the IT system. People just want to know why certain people have left, why there's been restructuring, and whether their jobs are safe.
Yeah, isn't this just gossip? Sounds like excuses and laziness to me.
Anyway, it clearly is the case that sales figures are at their lowest since February last year, and it's mainly to do with the amount of absences from the sales team. The recent launch of Comet software has caused problems too, because it seems that people haven't had enough training and are therefore making a number of mistakes.
I've done my best. It's a big department. I would like to say that the basic instruction handout was given out and everyone was shown step-by-step easy steps about how this should be done, and everyone was provided with should have been provided, well no, actually they were provided with a password that would allow them to log into the new system.
Yeah, so what has this got to do with staff morale?
It's what people struggling with new software, you know, they're making mistakes, it slows them down, it demotivates them. Anyway, if you could all look at the second report. Lucy and I produced an anonymous questionnaire to get feedback from staff about issues. If you have a look, you'll see very clearly the feedback statistics.
And Lucy, I don't mean to pick on you, but you were given a password, and like everyone else, you seem to have mislaid it or lost it, and then you emailed me.
What is this losing or forgetting passwords got to do with low morale? And also, everyone puts down poor management when you talk about morale. It's just a waste of time, these questionnaires.
Look, there are issues that have been raised, things like lack of training, lack of effective appraisals.
I do appraisals.
Well, when was the last time you conducted a staff appraisal? Anyway, the point is that we need to be working a little harder to get people on side, and we also found out from the questionnaire that some of the issues are to do with the recent restructuring, the job losses, poor management in some departments, and also, as I've mentioned, the lack of training on the new software.
Well, thank you for that, Sue. You do seem to have taken on a lot recently. Look, as there are a few reasons, what would you say was the predominant reason, so that we can begin to tackle one at a time, maybe start work on the major one first?
Well, I think it might be a good idea if you and I had a separate meeting about that. Why don't we move on to the second issue now?
Well, okay, we can hold on that, but maybe we could have one after this meeting. Okay. But you know, Sue, these issues really need to be dealt with now.
Okay, I take your point, but I do wish Clive was here.
Okay, well, maybe we could discuss the new appraisal system now.
We could have an awards night. Some sort of evening to boost morale.
Yeah, get drunk at company expense, perfect.
Or some sort of team challenge, get everyone pulling together. Maybe in the daytime first.
Yeah, what about go-karting?
Is that a team challenge? What about party Pilates?
What?
Darts. Guys like darts. Everyone's a winner.
It's quite a good idea, actually.
Yeah, and I like darts.
No, I don't like darts.
I think we should send a questionnaire rather than management deciding what motivates the team.
Darts.
No, I might kill someone.
I'm glad you consider everyone, Jason.
Okay, so we'll ask the staff, then we'll put it to a vote.
Yeah, great idea. So we'll give them some options, put it to a vote, and then there'll be no excuse for any complaints.
Okay, time's ticking on. Can we all have a think, come up with some ideas for the next meeting, and then at the meeting we can decide on about 6 and put it to a company vote, yeah?
Why don't we decide on those things now while they're still fresh in everybody's minds?
Yeah, and those issues do need addressing now.
Okay, so what have we got?
We have go-karting, awards night, party Pilates, darts, and drinking even.
We need more than that. Let's all come up with 4 and email them over in the next 2 days, and I'll take it from there. So, moving on, yes. IT issues. So what are the IT issues? I heard there was a problem on Friday and I was in St Albans with a new client.
Friday's issues took me quite a long time to investigate. In fact, it took me pretty much all of my afternoon. The F-drive backup recovery disassociated itself somehow from the PCP main framework. I found that this was a problem dating back to the beginning of last month when the PCP was originally reinstalled. Somehow, quite a large component from the Logative Rebix hadn't been installed in the reinstallation. Indeed, this was also a problem with the external energy source administration detail being overlooked.
Frank, just try explaining that back to us as if we're 5-year-olds, would you?
Oh, jeez.
Shall I continue? There was an external energy issue preventing us from powering up our mainframe and subfeeders.
Do you mean there was a power cut, Frank?
Yes, in simple terms.
Thank you.
So how can we avoid this happening again?
I guess it would be a matter for contacting the electricity supplier.
Pay the electricity bill?
Yes.
Can we minute accounts please pay the electricity bills on time? Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you.
And maybe we should send Frank on an effective communication skills course. Yeah, agreed, yeah?
Right, moving swiftly on.
What about the training issue?
Oh, I've been thinking about that and I've got an idea, but I want to run it past Clive first. Maybe we could save that for the next meeting?
Okay, but I mean, I think we should have that meeting sooner rather than later.
Okay.
Maybe in the next 2 weeks.
But not everybody needs to be there. I like myself and Clive and Frank, as it's relevant to them.
But I think I should be there as well.
That's my final decision, Sue, thank you. I'll speak with Clive and let you know date, Frank. Moving on, yes, Gary couldn't attend today, so he's provided us with a financial report, which in summary, well, we've had a tough year. The balance sheet's about even, and we're doing pretty well in contract sales, so thanks very much for that. On the downside, loss of revenue in handset sales abroad.
How much are we down on last year? I mean, Gary's layout here is quite confusing. This figure here, 52 or 21, I mean, I'm not familiar with this kind of financial report. He seems to have changed it.
That's a big difference. Let me just have a look. I've got a bit of accounting experience.
Thanks, Julian. You know, that's a lot. Seriously, I mean, what could be
It's actually neither of those numbers. It's 11.
Are we in red or black?
Well, I think if we can't pay our utility bill, I think we're in the red.
Actually, we are in the black, but we're down on last year.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I think that's about all for this meeting. Just leaves us with any other business.
Yeah, the people are leaving plates and not washing up their plates in the kitchen. Well, it is, it's an issue. It stinks.
On the same note, actually, at the shower room recently. Seen the state of the shower room?
Yeah, okay, can I just say?
Never been in there.
Yes, you should, because you ride your bike.
Okay, we've got a general cleanliness problem. And as far as those issues are concerned, you must make sure they're scheduled for the next meeting. All right, everyone happy? Is the dishwasher not working?
Okay, so I hope you could hear that and see that. I'm going to play it again when we have class on Wednesday, and we're going to be collecting data on it, and then I'm going to break you up into your groups. But I wanted you to have a chance to see it here as well, because I thought that seeing it more than once is really useful. All right, so hopefully you could stick through all of this, and we'll see you Wednesday night.